a little girl begged the Hells Angels, plunging the notorious club into a deadly war with a ruthless cartel. Her mother holds a dangerous secret, forcing the bikers to choose between their code and their survival. If you're new here, subscribe and comment your location. Now let's begin. The rain fell on St. Petersburg not as a gentle shower, but as a cold, relentless deluge that turned the streets into shallow rivers and the night into a smeared, neon-soaked canvas. Inside the Iron Haven, the designated clubhouse of the Hells Angels chapter, the air was thick with the familiar trinity of smoke, whiskey, and the low thrum of classic rock. It was a fortress of leather, denim, and scars, a world governed by its own brutal code. Jax, the chapter president, was holding court at the head of a scarred oak table, his face a roadmap of a life lived hard and without apology. To his right was his VP, Marcus, a mountain of a man whose silence was more intimidating than any shout. To his left was the sergeant-at-arms, Gunner, whose temper was as quick as his knife. They were discussing a territorial dispute with a small-time crew getting ambitious, a conversation that involved more grunts and pointed silences than actual words. The heavy, reinforced door of the clubhouse burst open, slamming against the inner wall with a crash that cut through the music and the murmured conversations. Every head turned. Every hand instinctively drifted closer to a weapon, a knife hilt, a gun butt, a pool cue. Framed in the doorway, silhouetted by the storm, was a small, trembling figure, a little girl, no more than 6 or 7, soaked to the bone. Her blonde hair was plastered to her face, her thin nightgown clinging to her shivering body. Her eyes, wide with a terror that was far too old for her face, scanned the room of grizzled, intimidating men before landing on Jax. She took a stumbling step forward, her bare feet slapping on the wet concrete floor. "Please," she whispered, her voice a fragile thread in the heavy silence. Then, finding a reservoir of desperate courage, she cried out, "Please, you have to help. They're beating my mama." The room froze. This was uncharted territory. They were built for bar fights, for gang wars, for collections and intimidation. They were not built for sobbing children in the dead of night. Jax was the first to move. He stood, his chair scraping back, his expression unreadable. He moved towards her, his heavy motorcycle boots echoing in the silence. He knelt, bringing himself down to her level, and his voice, usually a graveled command, was surprisingly soft. "Who's beating your mama, kid?" "A bad man," she sobbed, tears mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "A very bad man. His name is Carlos. He has guns. He's hurting her so bad. I heard her screaming. I ran. I didn't know where else to go." Jax's eyes met Marcus's over the girl's head. A silent conversation passed between them. A man named Carlos, with guns, brutalizing a woman. This wasn't just a domestic dispute. It had the stench of something else, something professional. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Jax asked, pulling off his own cut, his prized denim vest adorned with the winged death's head, and wrapping it around her shaking shoulders. The vest swallowed her whole, falling to her ankles like a bizarre armored blanket. Sarah, she stammered. "Okay, Sarah, where's your mama?" "At home. Apartment 4B, the old red brick building on Elm Street. Please, you have to hurry." Jax looked at Marcus and gave a single, sharp nod. That was all the command that was needed. In an instant, the clubhouse erupted into a controlled, military-like frenzy. The music died. Men who had been slouching in chairs moments before were now strapping on weapons, pulling on helmets, and firing up the engines of their Harley-Davidsons that were lined up outside like sleeping beasts. Jack scooped Sarah up into his arms. She was light as a feather, a bundle of cold, terrified bones. He carried her to his own bike, a massive black street glide, and handed her to Elena, the only female full-patch member of the chapter, a woman whose beauty was matched only by her lethality. "You're with Elena, kid. She'll keep you safe," Jack said, his voice leaving no room for argument. Elena took Sarah, her touch firm but gentle. "Hey there, little one. Let's get you out of the rain, huh?" She carried the girl towards a souped-up pickup truck, a mobile command center. The roar of a dozen Harley engines starting simultaneously was a sound that could wake the dead. It was a declaration of war. Jax, Marcus, and Gunnar led the pack, their headlights cutting through the downpour as they sped towards the dilapidated red brick building on Elm Street. This was not about charity. This was about a violation. Someone had brought this kind of violence into their city, onto their turf, and had driven a child out into a storm to seek refuge with the devil himself. That was an insult that demanded a response. They took the stairs of the apartment building two at a time, their heavy footsteps a grim drumbeat. The door to 4B was slightly ajar. Jax didn't bother knocking. He pushed it open, his gun already in his hand. The scene inside was one of brutal, methodical destruction. The small apartment was trashed. Furniture overturned, a lamp shattered, glass littering the floor. And in the center of the living room, curled on a stained carpet, was a woman. She was barely conscious, her face a mask of blood and swelling. A man, tall, muscular, with a cold, dead-eyed expression, was standing over her, wiping his knuckles on a towel. This was Carlos. He looked up as the Hell's Angels filled his doorway, his expression not of fear, but of cold, calculating surprise. He dropped the towel. "This is a private matter," Carlos said, his voice calm, eerily so. "You have no business here. You put your hands on a woman and terrorize a kid on my turf." Jax growled, the sound emanating from deep within his chest. "That makes it my business." Carlos actually smiled, a thin, cruel line. "Your turf? You have no idea what you're stepping in, old man." His hand twitched, moving towards the back of his waistband. He never made it. Gunnar moved like a striking snake. He didn't pull a gun. He preferred the intimacy of a blade. In one fluid motion, he closed the distance and had a hunting knife pressed against Carlos's throat, the point drawing a single, perfect bead of blood. "Try it," Gunnar whispered, his breath hot in Carlos's ear. "Please, try it." Marcus was already at the woman's side, checking her pulse. "She's alive, but she needs a hospital, badly." Jax kept his gun trained on Carlos. "Who are you?" Carlos, even with a knife to his throat, maintained his chilling composure. "I'm the man who just made you an enemy of the Sinaloa cartel. That woman." He nodded towards the broken figure on the floor. "Her name is Elena, not your Elena. Her name is Elena. And she and her late, unlamented boyfriend thought they could steal from us. He's already fed to the Gulf. She was just finishing her lesson." The name Sinaloa landed in the room with the force of a bomb. This wasn't a local thug. This was a high-level enforcer for one of the most ruthless drug cartels in the world. And the woman, Elena, was involved. Just then, Marcus, who was gently trying to rouse the woman, froze. He pulled a small, blood-smeared plastic card from her clenched fist. It was a Federal Witness Protection Program ID. The photo was of a younger, unbruised Elena. The name read Stella Petrova, and in the corner, stamped in red, was the word terminated. "Jax," Marcus said, his voice low and deadly. "She's a witness, or she was. They whacked her handler, this piece of shit." He glared at Carlos, just murdered a federal agent. The stakes had just skyrocketed. They weren't just intervening in a beating. They were now in possession of the cartel's only loose end. a woman who was supposed to be dead. They were standing in the middle of a federal crime scene, holding the man who created it. Jax's mind raced. Handing Carlos over to the cops was out of the question. It would bring a world of legal trouble down on the club. Letting him go was suicide. And the woman, she was a liability of nuclear proportions. "Gunner, tie him up, gag him. We're taking him with us," Jax commanded. "Marcus, get the woman. Be careful with her." They worked with brutal efficiency. Carlos was bound, gagged, and hauled out over Gunner's shoulder like a sack of grain. Marcus lifted the unconscious Elena, her head lolling against his chest. Jax did a quick, final sweep of the apartment, his eyes taking in the details. This was no simple hideout. There was expensive surveillance equipment, bundles of cash tucked in a false bottom drawer, and a passport for Stella Petrova, with a flight booked to Moscow for the next morning. She wasn't just a victim. She was a player who had been preparing to run. Back at the Iron Haven, the atmosphere was tense. The club's medic, a man named Doc, who had learned his trade in the Marines and not medical school, was patching up Elena, Stella, in a back room. Carlos was locked in a soundproofed storage closet, under the watchful eye of two prospects. Sarah was sitting at the bar, wrapped in a blanket, sipping hot chocolate that Elena had made for her. The female biker had a surprising soft spot for the child, her usual hardened exterior melting away. "Is Mama going to be okay?" Sarah asked, her big eyes fixed on Jax. Jax looked at the little girl, at the absolute trust in her eyes, and felt a strange, unfamiliar pang in his chest. "Doc's taking care of her, kid. She's tough." Just then, Doc emerged from the back room, wiping his hands on a towel. "She's conscious. Busted ribs, fractured cheekbone, severe bruising, but she'll live. She's asking for her daughter." Jax nodded and led Sarah into the room. Stella was propped up on a cot, her face a horrifying palette of purple and blue. When she saw Sarah, a strangled sob escaped her bruised lips. She opened her arms, and the little girl ran into them, burying her face in her mother's neck. "My brave girl," Stella whispered, her voice raspy from screaming. "My brave, brave Sarah." Her eyes then lifted from her daughter and landed on Jax, and the gratitude in them was instantly mixed with a deep, primal fear. She knew who they were. She knew what they represented. "Thank you," she breathed. "But you have to let us go. Now. You don't understand what you've done. He's not alone. They'll come for him, and they'll kill everyone who stands in their way." Jax crossed his arms, his presence dominating the small room. "Carlos works for the Sinaloa cartel. You were in witness protection. Your handler is dead. You want to tell me what's really going on, Stella? Or is it Elena?" The use of her real name made her flinch. She held Sarah tighter. "It's Stella. Now. It's the only name that matters." She took a shaky breath. My boyfriend, Alexei. He was a money launderer for the cartel. I was his assistant. I knew things. When he decided to skim from the top, he convinced me to testify. He said it was our only way out. But they got to him before the trial. The U.S. Marshals hid me and Sarah. But Carlos, he found us. He always finds us. It was a tragic story. But Jax, a man who had built his life on reading lies, sensed the gaps. The expensive equipment, the cash, the passport. She was leaving something out. "We have Carlos in a closet," Jax said flatly. "The cartel's problem is now our problem, and by extension, so are you." The next few days were a masterclass in controlled chaos. The club went on high alert. Their legitimate businesses, a custom bike shop, a few bars, operated as normal, but the underground network was buzzing. Lookouts were posted 24/7. Arms were distributed. Alliances with other, smaller clubs were called in. Stella and Sarah were kept in a secure room above the clubhouse, under guard. The initial dynamic was strained and suspicious. The bikers saw them as a dangerous complication. Stella saw the bikers as violent criminals, no better than the ones she was running from. But slowly, forced proximity began to wear down the walls. Sarah, with the resilience of a child, became the club's unexpected mascot. She followed big, silent Marcus around as he worked on the bikes, handing him tools with a seriousness that made the corners of his mouth twitch. Gunnar, to everyone's astonishment, was discovered teaching her how to play checkers, his rough, tattooed hands moving the red pieces with unexpected delicacy. And then there was Jax. He tried to maintain his distance, to be the cold, pragmatic president. But Sarah had a way of getting to him. She'd bring him a poorly drawn picture of a motorcycle or ask him a question with such innocent curiosity that he couldn't brush her off. He found himself checking on her last thing at night, making sure she was sleeping, a protective instinct he hadn't felt in decades, roaring to life. The real shift, however, was between Jax and Stella. As her bruises began to fade, revealing the strikingly beautiful woman beneath, the tension between them evolved. It was no longer just captor and captive, or protector and protected. It became a charged, silent dance between two wounded, deeply guarded people. One night, Jax brought her dinner. The clubhouse was quiet, most of the members out on patrol. Sarah was asleep in the next room. "She's finally down," Stella said, her voice soft. She was standing by the small window, looking out at the rain-slicked street below. She wore a simple t-shirt and sweatpants provided by Elena, but she carried herself with a grace that spoke of a different life. Jax set the plate down on the table. "You should eat." She turned to face him. The fear in her eyes had been replaced by a profound weariness. "Why are you doing this? You could have handed us over. You could have killed us. Why the risk?" Jax leaned against the doorframe, his arms crossed. "A little girl came to us for help. That means something. On this turf, it means everything." "It's more than that," Stella said, her gaze piercing. "I see the way you look at her. You care." Jax was silent for a long moment. The truth of her words hung between them. "Maybe I do," he finally admitted, his voice rough. "But don't mistake that for trust. You're hiding something, Stella. I can smell it." He pushed off the doorframe and walked towards her, stopping just a foot away. The space between them crackled with an electric tension. He could smell the faint scent of soap on her skin, see the rapid pulse beating at the base of her throat. She didn't back away. She held her ground, her chin lifted in a gesture of defiance that was pure fire. "You think because I'm not one of you, because I don't wear a patch, that I'm weak," she whispered, her breath ghosting across his face. "I think you're a survivor," Jax corrected, his voice a low rumble. "And survivors do what they have to. I just need to know what that is before it gets my men killed." His eyes dropped to her lips. Her breath hitched. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to this single, charged moment. The threat outside, the danger they were in, it all faded away, replaced by a raw, magnetic pull that was as dangerous as it was undeniable. The sound of heavy, hurried footsteps on the stairs shattered the moment. Marcus appeared in the doorway, his face grim. "Jax, we have a problem. The cops are here, and they're not the local kind. It's the FBI." Jax's head snapped towards the door, the intimate tension with Stella evaporating instantly, replaced by the cold, sharp focus of a wartime general. "How many?" "2 cars. 4 agents. They're at the front gate, looking very serious," Marcus reported, his voice a low growl. "They're asking for you by name." Stella's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes wide with renewed terror. "They found me. Oh God, they'll send me back, or they're with the cartel." "Quiet," Jax commanded, his voice leaving no room for panic. He turned to Stella, his gaze intense. "You and Sarah stay in this room. You do not make a sound. You do not come out for anyone but me or Marcus. Understood?" She nodded, her body trembling. Jax turned and followed Marcus down the stairs, his mind racing. The FBI. This changed everything. This was no longer a shadow war with a cartel. This was a direct confrontation with the full weight of the federal government. He strode through the main room of the clubhouse, where the remaining members had already fallen into a defensive posture. The air was thick with a silent, aggressive tension. Jax pushed open the heavy front door and stepped out into the damp night, Marcus and Gunnar flanking him like twin pillars of fury. 2 black sedans were idling just beyond the club's wrought iron gate. 4 men in cheap suits stood there, their postures screaming federal agent. The lead agent, a man with a sharp jaw and colder eyes, held up his badge. "Jacob Morrow, I'm Senior Agent Miller, FBI. We'd like to ask you a few questions." "It's Jax, and you're on private property. You got a warrant?" Jax's voice was flat, a challenge. "We're just here to talk," Miller said, his smile not reaching his eyes. "About a man named Carlos Herrera and a woman, Stella Petrova. We have reason to believe you might have information regarding their whereabouts." So they knew names. This was bad. "I don't know any Stellas, and the only Carlos I know runs the taco truck on 5th. His carnitas are decent." Jax crossed his arms, his biceps straining the leather of his jacket. The lie was a wall, solid and impenetrable. Agent Miller's smile tightened. "Mr. Morrow, let's not play games. Carlos Herrera is a person of extreme interest to this agency. Harboring him, or the witness he was sent to eliminate, constitutes obstruction of justice, among other, more serious charges." Gunnar took a half step forward, a low rumble emanating from his chest. Marcus placed a restraining hand on his arm. "You hear that, Jax?" Gunnar muttered. "Obstruction. Sounds like a fancy word for minding our own damn business." Jax ignored him, his eyes locked on Miller. "Like I said, don't know them. Now, if you don't have a warrant, you're trespassing, and we don't take kindly to trespassers." The standoff stretched, the silence broken only by the distant hum of the city and the idle of the government sedans. Miller's gaze swept over the clubhouse, the grim-faced men, the imposing bikes. He knew he was outgunned, not in firepower, but in sheer, localized power. "Fine," Miller said finally, his voice clipped. "We'll be in touch, Mr. Morrow. But a word of advice? The people looking for Carlos and Stella, they don't knock, and they don't care about property lines." He gave a curt nod to his team, and they slid back into their cars. The sedans executed a slow, deliberate U-turn and disappeared into the night. Back inside, the club erupted. "He knows. The Fed knows we have them." One of the younger members, a prospect named Leo, exclaimed, his voice tinged with panic. "Of course he knows," Jax snapped, his patience fraying. "The question is, what is he going to do about it? And is he working with the cartel or against them?" He turned to Marcus. "We need to move them. The clubhouse is compromised." "Where?" Marcus asked. "The safe house on the waterfront?" Jax shook his head. "Too obvious. They'll have that flagged." He ran a hand over his face, the weight of the decision heavy on his shoulders. "My place." A stunned silence fell over the room. The president's private residence was the most sacred, most protected space in their world. No one outside the inner circle had ever been there. "Jax, is that wise?" Marcus asked, his concern evident. "We don't have a choice. It's the one place they won't look, and it's a fortress." He looked toward the stairs. "Elena, pack them a bag. We're moving. Now." An hour later, Jax's black pickup truck, followed by 2 decoy bikes, pulled away from the Iron Haven and navigated a complex, circuitous route through the city before heading into the wooded hills on the outskirts of town. Stella sat in the passenger seat, stiff and silent, while Sarah, exhausted, slept in the back, her head pillowed on a backpack. They finally pulled up to a secluded, modern cabin nestled deep in the pines. It was all sharp angles, dark wood, and bulletproof glass, a far cry from the gritty clubhouse. Jax carried the sleeping Sarah inside and laid her on a large leather couch, tucking a blanket around her. Stella stood in the middle of the great room, hugging herself, looking small and lost amidst the masculine decor and the wall of firearms. "This is your home?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "It's a place I sleep," Jax corrected, his tone brusque. He tossed her a key. "Your room is down the hall. Don't wander off. The perimeter is alarmed." He moved to the kitchen and poured 2 fingers of whiskey, not offering her any. He drank it in one go, the liquid fire doing little to calm the storm inside him. Stella watched him, the solid, unyielding line of his back. The charged moment from earlier in the clubhouse came rushing back, amplified by the intimacy and isolation of this new space. "Why are you doing this?" she asked again, the question hanging in the quiet room. "Really? You're risking your entire club, your freedom, for us. Why?" Jax turned around, his eyes shadowed. "I told you, the girl." "It's more than that," Stella insisted, taking a tentative step forward. "I see the way you are with your men. This code, it's not just a slogan. It's who you are. You protect what's yours. And are you mine, Stella?" The question was out before he could stop it, low and dangerous. Her breath caught. She was close enough to touch him now. "I don't know what I am anymore." His gaze was a physical weight, tracing the line of her jaw, the curve of her mouth. The air grew thick, heavy with all the things they couldn't say, with the danger that surrounded them and the undeniable attraction that pulsed between them. "I need the truth," he said, his voice rough with a desire he was barely controlling. "All of it. No more half-stories." "Who are you? Really?" Stella's eyes glistened with unshed tears. The wall around her was crumbling, brick by painful brick. The fear, the running, the constant lying, it had exhausted her. "Alexei wasn't just my boyfriend," she began, her voice breaking. "He was my husband. And I wasn't just his assistant. I was the accountant. I knew everything. Every shipment, every money drop, every corrupt official on the payroll. When he decided to flip, it was my idea. I thought it was our only way to a real life. For Sarah." She wrapped her arms around herself, the solitary figure in the vast, quiet room. "But I was greedy too. I skimmed money. A lot of money. I hid it. That's what Carlos was really after. Not just to silence me. To find the money, the passport, the cash at the apartment. That was my escape plan. For me and Sarah. To disappear without the marshals, without anyone." She finally looked up at him, her expression raw and utterly vulnerable. "I'm not an innocent victim, Jax. I'm a thief and a liar. I brought this on myself, on my daughter, so now you know. The whole ugly truth." Jax stared at her, processing her confession. She was a criminal, just like him. The revelation should have pushed him away, But it did the opposite. It grounded her. It made her real. She wasn't a saintly witness. She was a flawed, desperate mother who had made terrible choices for what she thought were the right reasons. He understood that language perfectly. He closed the final distance between them. He didn't speak. He simply reached out and cupped her cheek, his thumbs stroking away a single tear that had escaped. His touch was surprisingly gentle, a stark contrast to the violence he was capable of. Stella leaned into his hand, her eyes fluttering closed for a second. It was the first kind, non-medical touch she had felt in years. "When this is over," Jax murmured, his voice a low vibration that she felt in her bones. "When it's safe, we'll figure it out." It wasn't a promise of love. It wasn't a declaration. It was a statement of intent, a claiming. Before she could respond, a soft sound from the doorway made them pull apart. Sarah was standing there, rubbing her eyes. "Mama, I'm thirsty." The moment was broken, but the shift was permanent. The line had been crossed. Jax looked from the little girl back to her mother, his decision made. "I'll get you some water, kid," he said, his voice softer than Stella had ever heard it. He walked towards the kitchen. A king in his domain, now with two unexpected subjects under his protection. But the peace was an illusion. As Jax handed Sarah a glass of water, his phone buzzed. It was a text from Marcus. It contained only 3 words, but they sent a chill down his spine. "The mole is Leo." The 3 words on Jax's phone screen seemed to burn themselves into his retinas. The mole is Leo. Leo, the young, eager prospect who had just been panicking in the clubhouse. The one who was always just a little too keen, a little too interested in things that weren't his business. Rage, cold and absolute, washed over Jax, momentarily eclipsing the lingering heat of his moment with Stella. He didn't let a flicker of it show on his face. He finished handing Sarah the glass of water, his movements deliberately calm. "Here you go, kid. Get some more sleep." He waited until Stella had shepherded a sleepy Sarah back to the bedroom before he moved. He strode to his secure landline, his fingers dialing a number from memory. Marcus answered on the first ring. "You saw?" "Talk to me," Jax commanded, his voice a low, deadly whisper. "After the feds left, I had a feeling," Marcus said, his tone grim and satisfied. "I set a trap, left a false piece of intel about moving the package to a warehouse on the pier. Only mentioned it to 3 people. Leo was one of them. 10 minutes ago, a black SUV did a slow drive-by of that warehouse. It was a cartel scout car. We have him on wiretap, Jax. He called a burn phone, told them the witness was being moved." Jax closed his eyes. The betrayal a physical ache. A prospect was supposed to be the future of the club. A young man to be molded and tested. Leo had spat on that. He had endangered every single one of his brothers for cartel money. Where is he now? Back at the clubhouse, playing pool like he doesn't have a care in the world. He thinks he's clever. Keep him there. Don't let him suspect a thing. I'm on my way. Jax hung up. The king was returning to his court to pass judgment. He turned to find Stella standing in the hallway, her arms wrapped around herself. She had heard enough. "Jax, what's happening?" "Club business," he said, his voice leaving no room for questions. He grabbed his cut and a set of keys to a different, nondescript truck. "The alarm system is armed. There's a shotgun under my bed, loaded. You see or hear anything that isn't me or Marcus, you use it. You understand?" The raw fear was back in her eyes. But she nodded, a newfound steel in her spine. "Be careful." He gave her one last, long look, a look that held the ghost of their almost kiss and the weight of the violence to come. Then he was gone, the door closing behind him with a solid, final thud. The ride back to the Iron Haven was a blur of cold fury. Jax walked into the clubhouse, and the atmosphere was different now. The members who knew, Marcus, Gunnar, a few other trusted elders, watched him with grim anticipation. They knew the look on their president's face. Leo, however, was still at the pool table, laughing at something, completely oblivious. "Leo!" Jax's voice cut through the noise, flat and cold. The prospect looked up, a smile still on his face. "Yeah, Prez? Church. Now." Jax didn't wait for a reply. He turned and walked towards the back room, the inner sanctum. The smile melted from Leo's face, replaced by a flicker of unease. He looked at Marcus, whose expression was granite, and then at Gunnar, who was idly cleaning his fingernails with the tip of his knife. Swallowing hard, Leo followed Jax. The door closed, and the remaining members formed a loose, silent circle around it. They didn't know what was happening, but they knew the sound of judgment when they heard it. Inside the windowless room, Jax stood at the head of the table. Marcus and Gunnar flanked the door. Leo stood before them, shifting his weight from foot to foot. "What's this about, Jax?" Leo asked, trying and failing to sound casual. Jax didn't answer. He simply picked up a small, cheap phone from the table and tossed it so it skidded to a stop in front of Leo. It was the burn phone. Leo's face went ashen. I don't know what that is." "Don't," Marcus growled from behind him. "We heard you. We have the recording. You sold out the club. You sold out a woman and a little girl to the people who want to murder them." The bravado shattered. Leo's shoulders slumped. They had my sister. They said they'd kill her. What was I supposed to do?" Jax finally spoke, his voice dangerously quiet. "You were supposed to come to me, to your brothers. We protect our own. That's the whole fucking point." He took a step forward, his presence filling the room. "How long?" Leo was crying now, tears of shame and terror. "A few weeks. They approached me after the last run to the border. I just gave them small stuff at first. I didn't know it would lead to this." "Where is your sister now?" Jax asked. They let her go after I gave them the first real tip about the witness. She's safe. I'm sorry, Jax. I'm so sorry." The apology meant nothing. The betrayal was complete. In their world, there was only one punishment for this. Jax looked at Gunnar and gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. Gunnar moved. It was fast and brutally efficient. Leo didn't even have time to scream before Gunnar's arm was wrapped around his throat, cutting off his air and his cries. He struggled for a moment, a frantic, pathetic flailing, and then went limp. Jax watched, his face an emotionless mask. This was the darkest part of his duty, the part that ensured the club's survival. It was ugly, but it was necessary. "Get him out of here," Jax said, his voice hollow. The usual place. As Gunnar and Marcus dealt with the body, Jax walked out of the church and back into the main room. The members looked at him, and from his expression, they understood. A grim silence fell. A brother was gone. Justice had been served, but it left a stain. Jax poured himself a whiskey, his hand steady. The immediate threat was neutralized, but the cartel was still out there. They knew the club was protecting Stella. They knew the FBI was sniffing around. They were wounded, but far from dead. His phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. He opened it. It was a photograph. Taken from a long lens, it was a picture of his cabin, of Stella, standing at the window, her face clear as day. The message below was simple. A trade. The woman and the money for your club. You have 24 hours. They had found his sanctuary. The mole was dead, but he had already done his damage. The noose was tightening. Jax looked at the photo of Stella, at the vulnerable line of her neck, and the cold fury returned, hotter and more focused than before. They had threatened what was his. Now, it was no longer about protection. It was about annihilation. The photograph on Jax's phone wasn't just a threat. It was a violation. They had looked through the trees, past his defenses, and seen her. The fragile sanctuary he had built in the woods was shattered. The 24-hour ultimatum was a timer on a bomb, and the fuse was already lit. He didn't waste a second. He showed the phone to Marcus and Gunnar. No words were needed. Their faces hardened into identical masks of cold fury. The mourning for Leo was over. This was war. Gunnar, round up the inner circle. Full battle rattle. We're not waiting for them to come to us, Jax commanded, his voice like grinding stones. Marcus, I need you back at the cabin. You're the only one I trust to hold the line if they come early. Marcus nodded. I'll take the prospect's bike. Less conspicuous. He was already moving, grabbing a heavy duffel bag from the arsenal locker. Back at the cabin, the mood was taut with a dread that even Sarah could feel. She clung to her mother's leg, her small face pinched with anxiety. Stella had tried to read her a story, but the words felt like ash in her mouth. Every creak of the old cabin, every rustle of the wind in the pines, made her jump. When Marcus's motorcycle rumbled up the driveway, Stella's heart leaped into her throat, fearing the worst. She watched from the window as he dismounted, his expression grim but steady. He wasn't just a biker. In that moment, he was a soldier arriving at a besieged fortress. He came inside, his eyes doing a quick, professional sweep. We have a situation. They know the location. Stella's blood ran cold. How? Doesn't matter. The mole is dealt with. But the clock is ticking. He looked at Sarah, then back at Stella, his gaze softening a fraction. Jax is handling it. My job is to make sure nothing gets through that door. He moved through the cabin with a quiet efficiency, reinforcing the door, positioning weapons at strategic points, his movements a silent reassurance of his lethal competence. Stella watched him, this giant of a man, who spoke in grunts and carried enough weaponry to start a small war, and felt a bizarre sense of safety. He was a bulwark, an immovable object. Meanwhile, at the Iron Haven, Jack stood before his inner circle, Gunnar, Doc, and two other hardened veterans, Rhino and Crow. A map of the city and the surrounding cartel-owned properties was spread on the table. They want to trade, Jack said, his finger stabbing a location on the map, an abandoned fish processing plant on the waterfront. That's where they'll expect it. But we're not trading. We're ending this. He laid out his plan. It was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They wouldn't defend, they would attack. The heart of the cartel's local operation was a nightclub called La Serpiente, a front for their money laundering and distribution. While the cartel was focused on the potential trade at the fish plant, Jax and his crew would hit the nightclub. They would take the one thing the cartel valued more than Stella or her stolen money, their operational hub and their reputation. It's a declaration, Gunnar said, a feral grin spreading across his face. I like it. It's a distraction, Doc corrected, ever the pragmatist. A damn loud one. They'll pull men from the plant to defend the club. It might buy Marcus enough time if they send a team to the cabin. That's the point, Jack said, his eyes burning with a cold fire. We draw their fangs. Then we cut off their head. As night fell, the two-pronged operation began. Marcus sat in the dark of the cabin's living room, a sawed-off shotgun across his knees, his ears tuned to the forest. Stella sat with Sarah in the fortified bedroom, a pistol heavy in her lap, listening to the big man's steady breathing from the other room. It was the longest night of her life. At the same time, 4 Harley-Davidsons, their headlights off, rolled to a silent stop in an alley 2 blocks from La Serpiente. Jax, Gunner, Rhino, and Crow dismounted. They weren't wearing their cuts. They were dressed in black, their faces obscured by balaclavas. They were ghosts. They moved as one, a unit forged in countless back-alley brawls and territorial disputes. The back entrance to the club was guarded by 2 cartel soldiers. They never saw what hit them. Gunner and Rhino dispatched them with silent, brutal efficiency, dragging their bodies into the shadows. Inside, the club was a den of vice. Thumping music, flashing lights, and the smell of expensive liquor and cheap perfume. The Hells Angels moved through the crowd like wolves through a flock of sheep, unseen and deadly. Their target was the upstairs office, where the cartel's local lieutenant, a man named Mateo, was known to conduct business. Jax kicked in the office door. Mateo was there, along with 3 of his men. The scene froze for a split second, the cartel men reaching for their weapons, their eyes wide with shock. Then, all hell broke loose. It was not a gunfight, it was a slaughter. The confined space of the office became a charnel house. Jax and his men fought with a ferocity that was terrifying to behold. It was close quarters, brutal and final. When the last shot echoed, only Jax and his brothers were left standing, their chests heaving, the room littered with the cartel's finest. Jax walked over to Mateo, who was bleeding out on the floor, and knelt beside him. "The woman, the child, they are under my protection," Jax said, his voice calm amidst the carnage. "The debt is paid. Tell your bosses in Sinaloa. The next man they send, we'll send back in a box. This city is ours." He didn't wait for a reply. He stood, and the 4 ghosts melted back into the night, leaving the heart of the cartel's operation in ruins. Back at the cabin, the expected attack never came. Just as Jax had predicted, the threat to their core business had pulled the cartel's forces away. The night passed in an unnerving, tense silence. As the first rays of dawn painted the sky, Stella heard the distinct, deep-throated rumble of a single Harley. She rushed to the window, her heart in her throat. It was Jax. He pulled off his helmet, his face streaked with grime and something darker. He looked exhausted, but his eyes, when they met hers through the glass, were clear and triumphant. She unlocked the door and ran out onto the porch, the morning dew soaking her bare feet. He was here. He was alive. He dismounted and walked towards her, his steps heavy but sure. He didn't say a word. He just opened his arms. Stella didn't hesitate. She flew into them, burying her face in the cold, leather-smelling solidity of his chest, her body shaking with sobs of relief. He held her tightly, his hand cradling the back of her head. "It's over," he murmured into her hair. "They're done. They won't be coming back." In that moment, on the porch of a secluded cabin, surrounded by the evidence of his violent world, Stella felt something she hadn't felt in years. True safety. It wasn't granted by a government program or a new identity. It was earned by the loyalty and brutal strength of a man who had declared her, and her daughter, his. The war was over, but the future, a future tangled with this man and his chaotic, dangerous family, was just beginning. Thank you for watching. Can you imagine what you would do if your child's life depended on the most dangerous men in town? Subscribe now and share your thoughts in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from? And would you have trusted the Hells Angels?